Even in the middle of the Ally launch event and the release of Tears of the Kingdom, Steam Deck quietly had a breakthrough week. Specifically, a lot of AAA gaming developers appear to be showing the Steam Deck even more love than usual, and there's a chance a big game will be made compatible soon. You can tell me if this is just me coping or if this is actually a big deal. Also, Dbrand unveiled their new skin, which could get them in trouble. There are massive updates to the Switch emulator, Yuzu, and I address some of the backlash to my ROG Ally reaction. Later in this video, I'll also tell you about my new sponsor, Rocket Money. Thanks to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. Anyway, I can't wait to tell you all about it, so let's get into it. What's good, Deck Gang? Let's kick off the Deck News segment with another Humble Bundle. You actually probably already know about this bundle. It's the Capcom Heroic Collection, and it's one of the best bundles I've ever seen. You can get 10 games for $30, and I recommend basically all of them. The only one I have no experience with is Lost Planet 3. Monster Hunter Rise is the star of this bundle, and it'll bring you dozens, if not hundreds of hours of gameplay on the Steam Deck. Personally, I'm a huge fan of Mega Man 11, Dragon's Dogma, and the Ace Attorney trilogy. If you pick it up, consider using my link in the description to help support the channel. If you can't afford this bundle this time around, well, I actually have some keys to give away, and some of those are for games in this bundle. Thanks very much to Funk, Jess, and Steven who shared these keys for the giveaway. Of course, just scan the QR code you see on screen to get to those keys. If you want me to give away one of your spare keys, just shoot me an email or a DM on Twitter. And if you like what I'm doing every week with these Deck News roundups, make sure to leave a like for the algorithm so that it picks it up and spreads it to more people. So there are a few small updates to SteamOS 3.5 that the Fox has been keeping us updated on over on his Twitter account. By the way, did you guys know I do a podcast with the Fox? Check us out, as well as Retro Game Core, Cryobite33, and Bill from the Nerd Nest over on the Nerd Nest podcast. I'll leave a link below. Anyway, yeah, the Fox has been toying around with SteamOS 3.5, which is on the hidden main channel because it's still so early in development, but he did notice a few updates. The level 2 performance HUD now shows VRAM, and the level 4 performance HUD now provides a throttle reason if the Steam Deck is getting throttled. In the screenshot the Fox shared, it says power, but he notes that it could presumably show temp as a throttle case as well. He also mentioned that Valve continues to update the Linux kernel, with the latest being 6.1.21. Those are some welcome additions to what is likely to be a huge update. We already know that SteamOS 3.5 will have the saturation slider, a soundtrack player, HDR support, big improvements to the shader cache, the big SMT bug fix, and I suspect we're going to see some of the updates we saw in the big desktop update to Steam. That includes being able to take notes and maybe even pin the notes to the screen while you're playing the game. Speaking of the desktop update, Valve is actually calling for testers on that one. They recently posted this saying that they've been gathering feedback and making updates, and that as they get closer to shipping, they could use more testing and coverage from you to make sure nothing is overlooked. So they're making it easy to opt in, and they let you know that you can leave feedback in their feedback forum if you are interested. In other news, Dbrand has a brand new skin, and it's one of their best. They debuted a new product line called Clone of the Kingdom that is sure to piss Nintendo off. The star of this lineup, of course, is the skin for the Switch, including Joy-Con and dock skins. But they didn't stop there, because you can buy a Clone of the Kingdom skin for the Steam Deck. It's a $50 package, and it comes with the usual kit that covers the top, the back, and of course the front, including the grips and touchpad. Apparently this is only available for a limited time. If you pick one up, feel free to use my link, dbrand.com/fantodeck. They are not sponsoring this video, and I don't get a kickback, but at least it lets them know that I sent you. One last bit of news here is an awesome mod that YouTuber Dammit Jeff put me onto. This is apparently a Steam Deck modded with a 1200p display, and it was posted on Twitter by user Balika011, and it does look quite good. I can't tell if it's real or not, and despite questions from others, they didn't really seem to give more detail on this project, at least not yet. I'll certainly keep an eye on it and see what happens next. Alright, and with those smaller stories out of the way, I actually have 3 big stories for today. The Steam Deck seemingly getting even more love from developers, massive updates to Switch emulation and Tears of the Kingdom specifically, and I'm also going to address some of the criticism from my last video. But first, let me tell you about today's sponsor, Rocket Money. Rocket Money is an easy-to-use, all-in-one finance platform. If you've ever signed up for a free trial of an app or a service and then you forgot about it, then you know firsthand how easy it is for these subscriptions to seem harmless and then they start to accumulate quickly. Rocket Money safely and securely gathers all your account information in one place, identifies recurring expenses, notifies you of upcoming bills, and most importantly will cancel those subscriptions for you. And it doesn't end there, because Rocket Money will also negotiate bills on your behalf. You probably already know that some things like cable, internet, and credit card bills can be negotiated, and you can save like $200 a year, but it takes work to get to those savings. So let Rocket Money do the work for you. You just upload a picture of your bill, and then Rocket Money takes it from there. Then you can take the money you saved and set up a smart savings account. You just choose the amount and the frequency, and Rocket Money automatically makes those deposits. So to try it out for free and unlock more features with premium, head to rocketmoney.com/fan or click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to get started. Thanks to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. Alright, so the biggest thing I wanted to bring up today is that there were a number of major game updates last week. I've never seen so many AAA games address the Steam Deck specifically all in 1 week. I kind of think this is a big deal, as a big advantage to the Steam Deck is that it is a single SKU that developers can really target. So here's what I know. Check it out. First is Dead by Daylight. I actually told you about this one last week because the developers finally enabled anti-cheat on Linux for good, and it's been consistently working since then. Thankfully, it got an update last week when it officially went from unsupported to verified, and the developer even posted about it on Twitter. Likewise, Guardians of the Galaxy has now been rated verified as well. It was previously rated playable, but according to Steam Deck HQ, it received a fully functional controller configuration as well as some fixes to texture flickering. You may have heard by now, but this is an amazing game that's well worth a play, and it makes sense that developers gave it a nice update with the movie now being out. Here's hoping we can see a sequel despite the poor initial sales for this game. Splitgame is another game that received a fix. Valve updated the beta channel of SteamOS to update the graphics driver in order to fix a GPU crash that was occurring in Splitgate. And if you think a game like Splitgate can't be played on the Steam Deck because it's a competitive, free-to-play shooter, then I invite you to check out this video from my friend Mosquito, where he plays this game with trackpad and gyro. Next up, The Last of Us continues to see patches, and according to Steam Deck HQ, version 1.05 addresses performance on the Steam Deck specifically. Noah says these fixes include reduced shader building times, improvements to load times overall, reduced VRAM impact of texture quality settings, optimized content for improved performance across different levels, and optimized code to improve global CPU performance. He also says that when put together, all of this actually seems to improve performance of the game pretty massively on the Steam Deck. It sounds like these fixes get the game to 30 FPS, perhaps with some minor dips, at least in the early stages. Love to see that. The Witcher 3 also received an update for the deck. I saw this on Reddit posted by user Alex de Tampa, and he shows that Witcher 3 now has a Steam Deck preset just like its younger sibling, Cyberpunk. The Steam Deck preset in Cyberpunk is actually incredibly good, and I'm hoping the same is true for The Witcher 3. Lastly, Far Cry 6 made its Steam debut, and it appears to be running quite well on deck. Shout out to Gaming on Linux, who had a good video covering the performance of this game on the Steam Deck. Alongside these game updates, Proton Battle Eye was recently updated for the first time in a long time. Shout out to Jimmy from Deck Ready, who told me he saw this. Also, Gaming on Linux posted about it on Twitter, so shout out to him too. We hope that this spells good news for another big anti-cheat game to gain compatibility with the Steam Deck soon. I know which game I would vote for. What would be your choice, and do you think I'm putting too much hope in this potentially small update? So yeah, that is a ton of updates for AAA games on deck. 6 games in 1 week if you count the release of Far Cry 6, and that feels like it sets a new record. Let me know what you think. Do you feel like devs are beginning to show the Steam Deck a lot more love? Do you think that it makes sense to target the Steam Deck specifically since it is a single SKU? Let me know in the comments. And while I'm here, I do want to call out some news for some games that I've been anticipating. First, we received a small update on Hollow Knight Silksong. This tweet is from Matthew Griffin, who is handling the marketing for this game. It says, "Hey gang, just a quick update about Silksong. We had planned to release it in the first half of 2023, but development is still continuing. We're excited by how the game is shaping up, and it's gotten quite big, so we want to take the time to make the game as good as we can. Expect more details from us once we get closer to release." End quote. That's all fine by me. I hope they take the time that they need and make a game that reaches the quality that they're striving for. On the other hand, Stephen Kick of Night Dive Studios tweeted that System Shock has gone gold. I'm really looking forward to this game, and I'm definitely going to pick it up when it releases later this month. I never really played the original, but I enjoyed the demo for this game, and I just love everything Night Dive does. Okay, so there were some real big updates that make Tears of the Kingdom even more playable in general, and they all really seem to benefit the Steam Deck greatly. These updates stretch beyond Tears of the Kingdom as well, but clearly Tears is the popular subject given its recent release. Also, shout out to High Tech Lowlife, who had the cojones to show off Tears working on his Steam Deck in one of his recent videos. You can check the link in the description for that one. Alright, let me tell you about these updates. First, a small but important update to EmuDeck now allows you to provide your early access key and stay on the early access branch for updates to EmuDeck. This is important because all of the updates I'm talking about today are on EA builds and they won't come to stable Yuzu for some time. Now, when you go to manage your Yuzu configuration in EmuDeck, you can just provide it with your EA key, which you get from being a supporter on Patreon. I rightfully caught some flack in a previous video where I recommended using Pineapple EA to get early access builds. If you want to use early access builds of Yuzu, I highly recommend signing up for the Patreon and using your key with EmuDeck. Alright, with the latest builds of Yuzu in hand, I can point you to the progress report for last month. They made a ton of progress last month, and the biggest takeaways are on this tweet where they say they achieved 3 big accomplishments. Number 1, up to 87% performance increase for everyone. Number 2, more accurate rendering. And number 3, quality of life improvements. One of the biggest changes is that many games that used to need high GPU accuracy now only need normal GPU accuracy to render correctly with no issues. This saves up to 87% performance, but closer to 50% gains on average. As they say in their progress report, this applies to high-end beasts and low-end APUs alike. Some games called out specifically are Link's Awakening, Diablo 2, Luigi's Mansion 3, New Pokemon Snap, Bayonetta 3, Breath of the Wild, and more. If you want to get more specifics, I highly recommend reading through their progress report. But one thing that didn't make it into their progress report, but they tweeted about it later on, were their Tears specific fixes that were incorporated into Yuzu. You no longer need the TOTK fix that was developed solely for Tears. They boasted that Tears can run full speed on most hardware, can be experienced in 4K or higher, and no hacks are needed. Additionally, you can enjoy 60 FPS cheats and more with mods. Of course, some of what I mentioned like 4K, full speed, and 60 FPS aren't possible on the Steam Deck, but this is a big deal all the same, and kudos to the Yuzu team for not being afraid to promote this on Twitter. Alright, so to make sure you have everything you need to play Tears of the Kingdom on Steam Deck, here is my checklist. Make sure you're up to date with Yuzu EA by signing up for their Patreon and entering your key into EmuDeck. Next up, you want to make sure you're using firmware and keys for 16.0.2, and for the game itself, apply the 1.1 game update if you haven't already. And finally, for other mods, I still suggest going with the recommended Cryo Utilities install, and I've heard that pinning the GPU to 1000 is best. You may be tempted to disable SMT, but I spoke with Kyle, better known as CryoBite33, and he says the game is actually a little more stable with SMT on, so that's the recommendation for now. Thankfully, we should be getting that SMT bug fix in the next few months, so we'll no longer have to worry about whether to enable or disable SMT. On the subject of emulating the Switch on the Steam Deck, there have been some developments in the story for Nintendo issuing DMCA takedown requests for Lockpick. If you recall, Lockpick is the tool that lets you dump your keys from your Switch for use in emulators or to otherwise decrypt game data. Since last week, there seemed to be reason to believe that it wasn't Nintendo that made those takedown requests, but it was later confirmed that yes, it was in fact Nintendo, perhaps with the help of an overzealous fan who was potentially reporting things to Nintendo directly. That Lockpick repo has since resurfaced elsewhere despite the takedowns, but I won't be publicizing its location for fear of giving it any undesired attention. Suffice it to say that this is still very much a developing situation, and I'll keep you posted on what I learn. Alright, and finally I wanted to talk about my latest ROG Ally video, which received a good deal of criticisms in the comments and elsewhere. I don't mind the feedback overall, and some of it was constructive, but first let me give you the context. On Friday, I published a video that was effectively my reaction to the marketing of the Asus ROG Ally. There are two instances of marketing that I'm referring to here. First, the marketing that was given leading up to the event, like with the performance numbers that were communicated via Linus Tech Tips, Dave2D, and others. And secondly, marketing that appeared during the live launch event. Importantly, I think many people took my video to be criticism of the Ally itself. I don't have an ROG Ally yet, so I don't have much to say about the Ally itself beyond what was provided in reviews by folks like Linus, Retro Game Core, and The Verge. Once I get my hands on the Ally, I will have a lot more to say. Instead, my video was directed at what I consider to be misleading marketing, and I don't think I was alone in that sentiment. In particular, Linus himself called out the misleading marketing in his video titled, "I don't like being lied to, but I love the ROG Ally." I share the sentiment that I don't like being lied to. Some of you said that this is just how marketing works, and to a large degree, I do understand that sentiment as well. But there were a few things in that launch event that went beyond my personal threshold for acceptable marketing and just strayed into a territory that appeared to be intentionally misleading. I'm not going to rehash my arguments here, but this slide in particular felt egregious because there's no game I could find that gets 25 to 30 FPS on the Steam Deck and 50 to 60 on the ROG Ally under like-for-like conditions. People accused me of cherry-picking Returnal, but I went based on the benchmarks that were available, and I tried to find benchmarks where a game on the Steam Deck was in that 25 to 30 range, and there just were only so many, and none of them got to 50 to 60 on the ROG Ally. Anyway, the point of this segment is to clarify that I don't think the Ally is a bust. Far from it, I just think that Asus didn't have to give it all that spin to give it some deserved shine. I don't judge you for pre-ordering one, and in fact, as I said in that video, I'm actually still very excited about my own pre-order. I hope that clarifies some of that video, and shout out to the ROG Ally Discord, where I think we had a very productive conversation. I think that a lot can get easily misconstrued when it's one-way conversation like a YouTube video, but I'm always happy to drop in the comments or talk on Discord to get some more perspective. By the way, I'm not going to do a full new releases segment because this is still Zelda week after all. I just want to say go check out Darkest Dungeon 2, Void Train, and Cook Serve Forever, which were all recently released. They should all be good deck games, so take a look and consider adding them to your wish list or picking them up since they do have some good new release sales. Deck Gang out. Goodbye!